It began with the snow, not the soft, powdery flakes that children catch on their tongues, but a strange, metallic snow that fell in perfect hexagonal patterns. It shimmered unnaturally under the streetlights, casting an eerie glow over the quiet suburban streets. At first, people thought it was some kind of atmospheric anomaly, a freak weather event to cap off an already bizarre year. But as the snow piled up, it became clear that this was no ordinary winter storm. I remember standing by the window, watching the flakes accumulate on the lawn, each one reflecting the Christmas lights strung across the neighborhood. It was beautiful in a way that made your stomach churn, like staring at a painting that you knew was cursed. My dog, Max, growled low in his throat, his hackles raised as he stared at the snow. He knew before any of us did. The first sign of trouble came from the news. Reports of power outages, strange lights in the sky, and a low-frequency hum that seemed to emanate from nowhere and everywhere at once. Social media exploded with videos of the snow melting into pools of liquid metal, seeping into the ground like mercury. Then came the screams. They descended from the sky in ships that looked like jagged shards of obsidian, their surfaces absorbing light rather than reflecting it. The ships hovered silently, ominously, over major cities, their presence a dark blot against the festive cheer of Christmas decorations. And then, without warning, they attacked. The aliens were unlike anything we had imagined. They were tall, spindly creatures with elongated limbs and eyes that glowed like molten gold. They moved with a fluidity that was almost hypnotic, their bodies bending and twisting in ways that defied human anatomy. Their weapons were sleek and deadly, emitting beams of energy that disintegrated anything in their path. Buildings crumbled, cars exploded, and people vanished in flashes of blinding light. But it wasn't just their technology that terrified us. It was their intent. They didn't come to conquer or enslave. They came to eradicate, to wipe the slate clean. And they chose Christmas, the one day of the year when humanity came together in a fragile truce of goodwill and peace, to deliver their message. You are not alone, and you are not welcome. I remember the chaos, the screams, and the smell of burning pine mixed with melted plastic as Christmas trees ignited in the heat of their weapons. Families huddled together under dining tables or behind couches as if furniture could shield them from annihilation. And yet, amidst all this terror, there was something else, something they hadn't accounted for. Humanity fought back. It started small. A group of teenagers in a rural town rigging fireworks to take down a scout ship. A retired engineer using his knowledge of radio frequencies to jam their communications. A single mother turning her minivan into a makeshift battering ram to protect her children. Acts of defiance that seemed insignificant on their own, but together became something extraordinary. A symphony of resistance. The aliens underestimated us. They saw us as weak, divided by borders and ideologies, distracted by our petty squabbles and consumerism. They didn't understand what we were capable of when pushed to the brink. Our greatest strength wasn't our technology or our weapons. It was our spirit. The same stubborn resilience that had carried us through wars and disasters for millennia now burned brighter than ever. As days turned into weeks, humanity began to adapt. Scientists worked tirelessly to reverse engineer alien technology, while soldiers coordinated guerrilla tactics against an enemy far superior in firepower, but woefully unprepared for human ingenuity. Farmers turned tractors into armored vehicles. Hackers infiltrated alien systems. Even children played their part by spreading messages through encrypted networks. For every city they leveled, we built underground bunkers where survivors regrouped and strategized. For every family they destroyed, 10 more rose up with vengeance burning in their hearts. For every weapon they unleashed on us, we found ways to turn it against them. And then came Christmas Eve, the night everything changed. By then we had learned enough about them to strike back, not just survive, but fight for our planet with everything we had left to give. Across continents and time zones came reports of coordinated attacks against their ships and ground forces. Humanity's first real counteroffensive since this nightmare began. I remember standing on my rooftop that night under skies lit by explosions instead of fireworks, watching as one alien ship after another fell from its perch like blackened stars crashing into Earth's surface below. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was war. And somehow amidst all this chaos lay hope. A fragile ember glowing brighter with each act defiant humanity dared ignite against impossible odds. That night marked beginning end. Not theirs alone, but ours too. Not end destruction, but rebirth, unity forged, crucible, adversity tempered resilience, only species capable creating miracle midst apocalypse could ever hope achieve. The snowmen came alive that night. Not in the whimsical, magical way of children's stories, but in a way that made your blood run cold. It started in the small towns where families had built them earlier in the day, laughing and throwing snowballs as they shaped their frosty creations. By evening, those same snowmen were moving, jerky, unnatural movements at first, like marionettes controlled by invisible strings. Their coal eyes glowed faintly, a sickly green hue that pulsed in rhythm with the low-frequency hum that had haunted us since the invasion began. We didn't understand at first. People thought it was hysteria, a collective hallucination brought on by fear and exhaustion. But then the reports started flooding in. Snowmen across the country, across the world, were rising from lawns and parks, their twig arms snapping into sharp points, their carrot noses elongating into grotesque spikes. They weren't just moving, they were watching, observing us with an intelligence that shouldn't have been possible for something so absurdly innocent. It didn't take long to figure out what they were. Spies. The aliens had seeded their metallic snow with nanotechnology, microscopic machines that infiltrated the snowmen we built with our own hands. They used them to gather information, to map our defenses, and to monitor our movements. The snowmen were everywhere, silent sentinels standing guard over our neighborhoods, feeding data back to their masters. I remember the moment I realized what was happening. My neighbor, old Mr. Henderson, had built a massive snowman in his front yard, a towering figure with a top hat and scarf that his grandchildren had lovingly decorated. That night, I saw it turn its head toward my house. Just a slight tilt, but enough to send me scrambling for cover behind the curtains. Max growled again, low and menacing, his teeth bared as he stared at the thing through the window. The next morning, Mr. Henderson was gone. His house was empty, his car still parked in the driveway. The only sign of him was a trail of footprints leading from his front door to the snowman. And then nothing. No return tracks. Just an eerie silence that hung over the street like a shroud. Word spread quickly after that. People started destroying their snowmen, smashing them with shovels, dousing them in gasoline, and setting them alight. But for every snowman we destroyed, 10 more seemed to appear overnight. It was as if they were growing out of the ground itself, sprouting like weeds in our gardens and parks. We learned to fight back in new ways. Flamethrowers became a prized commodity. Even homemade versions rigged from propane tanks and lighters were effective against the snowmen's icy forms. Salt became more valuable than gold, poured liberally across lawns and driveways to create barriers they couldn't cross. Children who once built these figures for fun now joined their parents in tearing them down before they could rise. But it wasn't enough to destroy them. We needed to understand them. That's when Dr. Elena Vasquez entered the picture. Dr. Vasquez was a robotics expert who had been working on nanotechnology long before the invasion began. When she got her hands on one of the alien-modified snowmen, or rather, what was left of it after a farmer blasted it apart with a shotgun, she made a discovery that changed everything. The nanomachines weren't just spying on us, they were learning from us. They're adapting, she told us during one of her broadcasts from an underground lab hidden beneath what used to be a university campus. Every time we destroy one of these things, they analyze how we did it and adjust their designs accordingly. Her words sent chills down our spines, not just because of what they meant for our chances of survival, but because of what she said next. They're not just learning about our weaknesses, they're learning about us. Our emotions, our strategies, even our culture. The aliens weren't just trying to wipe us out. They were trying to understand us first. That realization sparked something in humanity, a fierce determination not just to survive, but to outwit these invaders at their own game. If they wanted to study us, we'd give them something worth studying. In cities and towns around the world, people began building decoy snowmen, false targets rigged with explosives, or laced with corrosive chemicals designed to destroy any nanomachines that tried to infiltrate them. Artists created grotesque parodies of snowmen as psychological warfare, figures with twisted faces and jagged limbs meant to confuse or intimidate the enemy. And then there were the snow traps. Entire neighborhoods worked together to create elaborate ambushes disguised as winter wonderlands. Innocent-looking rows of snowmen hiding flamethrowers, tripwires, and other improvised weapons beneath their frosty exteriors. It worked for a while. The aliens seemed caught off guard by our ingenuity. Their forces spread thin as they tried to keep up with humanity's relentless creativity. But we knew this was only buying us time. Dr. Vasquez and her team continued their work in secret, dissecting every piece of alien technology we could get our hands on, including the nanomachines inside the snowmen. What they discovered was both horrifying and hopeful. While the nanomachines were incredibly advanced, they weren't infallible. They have a central command system, she explained during another broadcast. The last one before her lab went dark after an alien strike. If we can find it and destroy it, we can shut down every single one of these things. And so began humanity's greatest gamble, a desperate search for the alien command center hidden somewhere on Earth, a place where all their technology converged like threads in a web. As Christmas Day dawned, a day that should have been filled with joy and laughter, but instead carried only smoke and ash, the world held its breath. We weren't just fighting for survival anymore. We were fighting for our very identity, for what it meant to be human against an enemy that sought to erase us not just physically, but culturally. The snow continued falling, metallic flakes shimmering like tiny daggers, but this time we didn't cower beneath its weight. This time we fought back with everything we had left: fire and salt, and hope. Humanity doesn't go quietly into the night. When the aliens and their magical snowman spies began their campaign of annihilation, we responded with everything we had: our ingenuity, our resilience, and our sheer audacity to fight back against impossible odds. The invasion was a war of attrition, but it was also a war of adaptation. And if there's one thing humanity excels at, it's adapting. The first wave of resistance came from the people themselves. Farmers turned tractors into armored vehicles. Engineers repurposed drones into kamikaze weapons. Hackers infiltrated alien systems, disrupting their communications and feeding them false data. But as the snowman spies multiplied and the alien ground forces advanced, it became clear that humanity needed to escalate. Enter the matter tanks. These weren't your standard Abrams or Leopards. No, these were tanks designed for a new kind of war, a war against an enemy that could bend physics and deploy nanotechnology through enchanted snow. Built in secret bunkers beneath mountains and deserts, the matter tanks were armored behemoths powered by experimental fusion cores. Their hulls were reinforced with alloys reverse-engineered from captured alien materials, making them nearly impervious to conventional energy weapons. Each tank was a fortress on treads, equipped with railguns capable of firing hypervelocity rounds that could punch through alien shields like paper. They carried plasma cannons for close-range combat, and EMP generators to disable enemy drones and snowmen alike. But their most innovative feature was their AI integration. Each tank was paired with an advanced neural network capable of learning and adapting to alien tactics in real time. The matter tanks became the spearhead of humanity's counteroffensive. Deployed in coordinated strikes across the globe, they turned the tide in battles that had seemed hopeless just days before. In one particularly famous engagement, a single matter tank held off an entire alien battalion in the ruins of Berlin, buying enough time for thousands of civilians to evacuate to safety. But tanks alone couldn't win this war. The skies belonged to the aliens, who deployed sleek black fighters that moved faster than anything humanity had ever built. That's where the aircraft carriers came in. Floating cities of steel and firepower, the carriers became humanity's mobile command centers. They launched squadrons of next-generation stealth fighters armed with experimental weapons designed specifically for this conflict. Missiles tipped with nanite disruptors, lasers calibrated to destabilize alien energy fields, and even kinetic rods capable of striking targets from orbit. The USS Indomitable, a Ford-class carrier retrofitted for alien warfare, became legendary during the Battle of the Atlantic. Surrounded by alien ships on all sides, It launched wave after wave of fighters while its railgun turrets shredded incoming projectiles. When an alien mothership attempted to descend into low orbit to deliver reinforcements, Indomitable fired a prototype orbital cannon that sent the massive vessel crashing into the ocean in a fiery explosion visible from space. Meanwhile, on the ground, humanity's infantry evolved into something new, something terrifyingly effective. Soldiers wore exoskeletons that enhanced their strength and speed, allowing them to carry heavier weapons and move faster than ever before. They were armed with pulse rifles that fired bursts of electromagnetic energy, capable of disabling both alien drones and snowman spies. But it wasn't just technology that gave humanity an edge. It was strategy. Military leaders adopted guerrilla tactics on an unprecedented scale, using small, highly mobile units to strike at alien supply lines and command centers before disappearing into forests or underground tunnels. Civilians played their part too, forming resistance cells that sabotaged alien operations from within occupied territories. And then there was Project Prometheus, led by Dr. Elena Vasquez, the same scientist who had uncovered the secrets of the snowman spies. Project Prometheus was humanity's ultimate gamble, a plan to strike directly at the heart of the alien invasion force. Using data gathered from captured snowmen and downed alien ships, Vasquez's team pinpointed what they believed to be the location of the alien Central Command Hub, a massive structure hidden deep beneath Antarctica's ice. The operation was codenamed Silent Night, a nod to the holiday season during which this war had begun. It involved a coalition of forces from every corner of the globe, matter tanks rolling across frozen tundra, aircraft carriers launching airstrikes against alien defenses, infantry units battling through blizzards and waves of enemy troops. But it wasn't just soldiers who took part in Silent Night. Civilians joined en masse, miners operating drilling equipment to breach underground tunnels, scientists working around the clock to maintain communication networks, even children helping to decode intercepted alien transmissions. As Christmas Eve approached once again, a year after this nightmare began, the final assault commenced. Humanity threw everything it had at Antarctica, missiles streaking through icy skies, tanks roaring across glaciers, soldiers fighting hand-to-hand against towering alien warriors. At the center of it all was Dr. Vasquez herself, leading a team of engineers and hackers into the heart of the command hub. Their mission was simple: shut down the alien central control system and disable their entire network, including the snowman spies. The battle raged for hours, days, but in the end, humanity prevailed. Vasquez's team succeeded in planting a virus within the alien system, a virus designed not just to disable their technology, but to turn it against them. As midnight struck on Christmas Eve, something extraordinary happened. Across the globe, snowmen collapsed into piles of harmless slush. Alien ships fell from the sky like shooting stars. Enemy troops froze mid-combat as their weapons malfunctioned. And then, silence. For a moment, no one dared to breathe, to hope. But then cheers erupted across battlefields and bunkers alike as people realized what had happened. Humanity had won. The cost had been staggering. Cities reduced to rubble, millions lost. But we had survived. We had faced an enemy far beyond our understanding or power, and emerged victorious not because we were stronger or smarter, but because we refused to give up. In those quiet moments after victory, when soldiers embraced each other amidst falling snow and families reunited under makeshift Christmas trees, it became clear what this war had truly been about. Not just survival, but unity. We were no longer nations or factions. We were humanity, and together we had done what no one thought possible. We had fought back against extinction, and won. The war had ended, but the scars of the invasion were etched into every corner of Earth. Cities lay in ruins, families mourned their dead, and the once vibrant planet now bore the weight of a collective rage that refused to fade. The aliens had come to erase us, to reduce humanity to a footnote in the galactic annals of extinction. But we had survived, and survival wasn't enough. We wanted revenge. The decision wasn't made lightly. Humanity had always prided itself on its capacity for mercy, even in the face of unspeakable atrocities. But this was different. The aliens hadn't just waged war. They'd sought to annihilate us completely, to erase not just our bodies but our culture, our history, our very existence. They had underestimated us, and now they would pay the price. The plan was audacious, borderline insane. We wouldn't just strike back at their homeworld. We would destroy their sun. The logistics alone were staggering. Humanity's nuclear arsenal, while vast and terrifyingly powerful by terrestrial standards, was laughably insignificant compared to the scale of a star. The sun emitted more energy in a single second than all the nuclear weapons ever created could produce in 1,000 years. But this wasn't about brute force, it was about precision. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the hero of the resistance and architect of Project Prometheus, returned from her underground lab with a new plan, Project Helios. It wasn't enough to simply detonate nukes near their sun. It would be as futile as throwing pebbles into a volcano. Instead, she proposed something far more devastating, triggering a chain reaction within the alien star's core. "We don't need to destroy it," she explained during her address to the United Nations' newly formed Global Command Council. "We just need to destabilize it. Stars are delicate systems, perfect balances of gravity and nuclear fusion. If we can disrupt that balance, even slightly, we can cause their sun to enter a runaway reaction." The room fell silent as she outlined her plan. Humanity would build a fleet of interstellar carriers equipped with experimental fusion drives capable of reaching the alien system within decades. On board these ships would be humanity's most destructive creation yet, a weapon so advanced it made traditional nuclear bombs look like firecrackers. The singularity bomb. Unlike conventional nukes, which relied on fission or fusion reactions, the singularity bomb was designed to create a temporary micro-black hole upon detonation. While it would collapse almost instantly under its own instability, its brief existence would release enough energy to disrupt the delicate equilibrium of a star's core. The risks were monumental. If something went wrong, if the bomb detonated too early or too late, the mission would fail spectacularly. Worse still, humanity's newfound unity might shatter under the strain of such an ambitious project. But there was no turning back now. Construction began immediately. Every nation on Earth contributed resources and expertise. Factories once dedicated to building tanks and aircraft carriers were repurposed to construct starships and advanced propulsion systems. Scientists worked around the clock to perfect the singularity bomb's design, while engineers developed shielding capable of withstanding the unimaginable radiation near a star. The fleet was named the Vengeance Armada. It consisted of 20 massive carriers bristling with weaponry and escorted by hundreds of smaller support ships. Each carrier housed one singularity bomb in its reinforced core, a weapon so volatile that even transporting it was considered an act of madness. As launch day approached, humanity held its breath. The mission represented not just vengeance, but hope. The hope that we could prove ourselves capable of striking back against an enemy that had once seemed invincible. When the fleet finally departed Earth's orbit, billions watched from every screen and rooftop as the ships disappeared into the void, their engines blazing like comets against the night sky. The journey took decades. Generations were born and died aboard those ships as they hurtled through interstellar space toward their target, Zeta Persei 9, the alien home system. Along the way, humanity continued its relentless march forward, advancing technology at an unprecedented rate in preparation for what lay ahead. By the time the Vengeance Armada reached its destination, humanity had evolved into something unrecognizable, a species united not by borders or ideologies but by purpose. The alien homeworld loomed before them, a planet teeming with life and industry beneath its golden sun. The aliens had rebuilt since their defeat on Earth. Their cities sparkled like jewels scattered across continents, shaped by unfamiliar oceans and mountains. But none of that mattered now. The carriers positioned themselves around Zeta Persei 9's sun at carefully calculated intervals, while smaller ships deployed decoys designed to draw away alien defenses. Despite their technological superiority, the aliens were caught off guard. They hadn't anticipated that humanity would strike directly at their most vital resource. When all was ready, the Vengeance Armada transmitted one final message back to Earth. For every city they burned, for every life they took, for every child who will never know peace, this is for us. And then they detonated the bombs. One by one, each singularity bomb activated in perfect synchronization around Zeta Persei 9 Sun. For an instant, an infinitesimal fraction of time, the star's core became unstable as micro-black holes tore through its delicate balance like knives through silk. The result was catastrophic. Zeta Persei 9 Sun collapsed inward before erupting outward in a supernova, so bright it could be seen from neighboring systems. The shockwave obliterated everything within light years. Planets reduced to ash, moons shattered into dust, alien fleets vaporized before they could even react. Back on Earth, telescopes captured images of the explosion decades later, a brilliant burst of light marking humanity's final act of defiance against those who had sought our destruction. We had done what no other species dared. We had turned our enemy's greatest strength, their sun, into their ultimate weakness. And though we mourned those lost along the way, those who gave everything so that others might live, we knew one thing for certain. Humanity may be kind, but we are not fools. We are survivors. We are creators. And when pushed too far, we are destroyers. The galaxy would never forget the day humanity struck back. The destruction of Zeta Persei 9 Sun had sent shockwaves, both literal and figurative, throughout the cosmos. What had once been a quiet, unassuming species confined to a single blue planet was now a name spoken in hushed tones across countless star systems. Humanity had not only survived an existential threat, but had retaliated with such devastating precision that it left the galactic community reeling. For decades after the supernova, humanity braced for retaliation. Surely, the aliens must have allies, other civilizations that would see Earth as a dangerous rogue state to be neutralized. But no fleets came. No declarations of war arrived. The silence was deafening. And then we learned why. The destruction of Zeta Persei 9 Sun had not gone unnoticed by the rest of the galaxy. Far from it. The act had been broadcast across space like a flare in the night, a warning to any who might consider Earth an easy target. It wasn't just the scale of the attack that terrified other species. It was the sheer audacity of it. Humanity hadn't just defended itself. It had turned its enemy's greatest strength into their ultimate weakness. It was an act of cold, calculated vengeance that left no room for misunderstanding. Humanity was not to be trifled with. As interstellar probes ventured further into space, they began to uncover evidence of civilizations that had been watching us long before the invasion. These species, advanced and cautious, had observed Earth from afar, debating whether to make contact or steer clear. The invasion of Zeta Persei 9's forces had been their answer, a test to see if humanity could be contained before it became a galactic threat. We passed that test in the most terrifying way possible. The galaxy was not a peaceful place. It was a dark forest, as one philosopher described it, a place where every civilization was a hunter, stalking silently through the trees, wary of being seen by others. In this forest, revealing your presence could mean death. And yet humanity had not only revealed itself, but had done so with such ferocity that even the most aggressive civilizations hesitated to approach. The first contact came in the form of a message, a simple transmission intercepted by one of our deep space listening stations. "We see you." It wasn't friendly, but it wasn't hostile either. It was acknowledgement, a recognition that humanity had entered the galactic stage and could no longer be ignored. Over time, more messages followed. Some were offers of trade or alliances. Others were warnings to stay away from certain regions of space. But all carried an undercurrent of fear and respect. Humanity's reputation as a species capable of turning stars into weapons preceded us wherever we went. And yet, we didn't stop there. The destruction of Zeta Persei 9 Sun had united humanity in ways no one could have predicted. National borders became relics of the past as resources and knowledge were pooled to prepare for our next steps into the galaxy. The same ingenuity and determination that had allowed us to survive and retaliate now fueled an unprecedented era of exploration and expansion. We built fleets larger and more advanced than anything Earth had ever seen. Ships capable of traveling between stars in mere months, armed with weapons designed not just for defense, but for total annihilation if necessary. Colonies were established on distant worlds, each one a testament to humanity's resilience and ambition. But with power came responsibility, or at least the question of it. There were debates within humanity about what kind of civilization we wanted to become. Would we be conquerors, carving out an empire through force? Or would we seek diplomacy and cooperation with those willing to meet us as equals? The scars of the invasion were still fresh, and many argued that we could never trust another species again, that our survival depended on preemptively neutralizing any potential threats. Others believed that our greatest strength wasn't our capacity for destruction, but our ability to create, to build bridges where none existed before and prove that humanity could be more than its darkest impulses. In the end, we chose both paths. For those who sought war with us, those who saw Earth as a threat to be eliminated, we responded with overwhelming force. Entire fleets vanished into supernovas. Planets were left barren husks as warnings to others who might follow in their footsteps. But for those who approached us with open hands, with curiosity instead of fear, we offered something rare in the galaxy: friendship. Humanity became both a beacon and a shadow, a civilization capable of unimaginable destruction, but also one willing to share its knowledge and culture with those brave enough to trust us. We were feared, yes, but also respected in ways few other species could claim. And so began humanity's reign as one of the dominant powers in the galaxy, a species forged in fire and tempered by loss, but unyielding in its pursuit of survival and greatness. The galaxy may have been a dark forest, but now there was a new hunter among its trees, one whose light burned brighter than any star it left behind. And as we looked up at those stars from our new colonies scattered across countless worlds, we knew one thing for certain. We were no longer alone. We were no longer prey. We were human, and we would endure forever.